My name is Lisa, and I've been a PACE participant for a little over 2 years. I grew up in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, and I moved out here in my 20s or 30s, I think. It was in my 20s. So I come from an Austrian Sicilian background, so very much, we were probably more intellectual than anything else. I'm the baby of 5 kids. My sister was 20 years older. My 3 brothers, John, Peter, Paul, are 11, 8, and 6 years older. I was in customer service. You know, it just happened that I had that kind of personality. I have a language degree, so I was going to go into go into diplomacy, but practicality does enter into things. And so I worked at Career Track, and then I kind of fell into organic foods. And so I was a director over at Celestial, and I also worked for Whole Foods at one point. So near the end of my career, I had actually taken up home care, because after my big director job ended, everybody thought I'd worked for such a big organic company, I couldn't find work. So I started I was doing some phone work, doing some consulting on the side, and decided to work in home care. But I had a doctor, I'd been referred to a doctor, and she said, I'm a one-man shop, and we still don't have an explanation about why you fall so much. And so that's how I got referred on. Right before that happened, I fell on the job taking care of a client. And so I was laid up for like 6 months. And I wasn't like I was going to go back to that. And so I got into PACE about the same time that I started working on getting disability. I think above all, it's a community. I mean, it's a whole person, whole team approach. I think that's part of where we're trying to grow as an organization too. I mean, if you just take what happens if you fall down, since that's that was my specialty. I don't do that anymore, but immediately it's a big alert. You have fallen. Now, when you're just living on your own, if you fall down, you hurt, but you sit there going, do I have to do something about this? And you mill about it, and you probably sit too much, and you don't take care of it. Here, it's, okay, red alert, you're going to meet with the clinic first. You can't go back to PT until you've gone to the clinic. Then you go to PT. And then, and so it's just a whole different way of taking care of someone, and that's taking care of the whole person, and it is that community sense. I mean, I would like nothing else than to walk into that room and have Lucero bug me that it's time for trivia. Joyce, or any of the, just sit there and figure out the rules to a game, get annoyed because the music's too loud and walk out. I would like to get annoyed by normal stuff, but I really do miss being with everybody. And I can tell you that there were days when, especially when my, pain and everything else was a lot worse, when I'd be like, why am I even bothering to go today? And then I'd get here and I'd sit down and talk to someone and find out these fascinating stories about who they were in their previous life, or I remember one day it was a terrible snowstorm, and as a fall risk, you're kind of like, should I really go, even bother going? And I went, though, and about an hour into things, this client who had just turned 100 came walking in, and so we played bingo together. It turns out that would be the last time I would see her, but I always, around that time I adopted an attitude, what would Eleanor do? Because Eleanor was old Hollywood, so it didn't matter that it was a terrible snowstorm and she was only going to be at Pace for 2 hours. She was dressed to the max when she came. And I was like, well, if you're complaining about going, that's nothing. You know? So that's what I mean. I think that it's a holistic approach. I mean, for one thing, just the idea of every 6 months, somebody's going to check you, you know, and you can take the president's cognitive test and you're going to get a physical therapy. I mean, I used to dread it because my getting up and down used to be a real issue. Now, this seat is too low, so I'll have trouble again. But instead of sitting there saying, well, this is just the way things are, maybe at New Year's you take a New Year's resolution, it's looking at things and it's like, well, where do I want to be in 6 months? You know, if you had asked me a year ago, even 1 year ago, can you really lose the weight? And now I've lost 60 pounds and I've been working with a nutritionist. It's looking at the whole program, where especially I'm a big proponent of physical therapy. Although sometimes I hear Klaus's voice in my ears. You know, it's like, okay, now what are you doing getting up that way? You don't get up that way, you know. And my father was German, so I really hear Klaus. Okay, put your feet right in front of you, you know. And up you go. But that is essential. And I think also in terms of, because maybe it's because I come from a doctor family, I'm like, if you can get used to how we do things, we will take care of it all for them. And that's the same way. I mean, no, we can't make our own appointment. But like I talked to one woman who said, well, you know, I just stay with the program. And I don't know what appointment they're sending me to. But it just makes it so much simpler than being the one who has to call Medicaid, call for an appointment, arrange transportation. Heck, the happiest appointment I ever had was my feet worked on after 2 months at home with COVID, for the COVID. And I hadn't left the house before then. And it was like, I get to go someplace. A friend of mine adopted a child from China. You know, and she was explaining to me that if kids are left in an orphanage and not given a lot of care and attention, they'll fail to thrive. And I think about that principle for older people. I'm sure you're the most amazing daughter, but you're not a health professional, and you don't have to do this alone. It's not a choice between they would live with you and you give up your life, or they live in a retirement home. It's more a question of a village. You know, it takes a village. I mean, when I lose weight, I send out to my weight loss team, which consists of someone from the clinic, PT, therapy, you know, I mean, because it's all of their efforts, and the nutritionist, of course. But I mean, it's that whole, you know, well, you know, and that's literally what happens, where one person who's helping you will suggest that you get something else, but it's all within Pace. So you're not having to go outside for everything. I think that, again, that it's that thriving thing. You know, it was like all of a sudden I was in a position where I was losing my ability to work. I was in terrible pain. I couldn't sit for periods of times and couldn't walk and things like that. I think it's made a huge impact. You know, even while I've been here, there were times where people said, no, we have to get you out of this house. I think that it's made a huge difference in my getting my life back, thinking forward of things I want to do, of ways I can help other people. And it's back to being me.